Gotta put on reading glasses or I'll be reading, I don't know what I'll be reading. Another poet that was on the stage with Kyle and me at a really cool event, Poetry at the Parks up in China Camp Beach Park, and that's where we met each other. Wendy was also on my podcast, my poetry podcast. So Wendy M. Thomas is a poet and associate professor of African American Studies at San José State University. Her debut poetry collection, Black California Gold, Bucknell University Press 2025, maps out life in the Bay Area in the 1980s and 1990s as the descendant of Black Southern migrants. Her creative work has most recently appeared on the Viewless Wings Poetry Podcast that I host, and in Hoxie Gorge Review, Poetry Self, and Obsidian, Literature and Arts in the African Diaspora. And I'll make one note about the history element. I wish poetry was used to teach history, not textbooks filled with 5 million dates that no one remembers and 5,000 pages that no one reads. But a poem can express more about history than any textbook. So Wendy, might be yours. Oh, do you want me to forward it down?
That's short. That'll be short.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So yes, I'm Wendy M. Thompson. I actually love the name thingy because usually when people ask me what my name is, I always tell them I'm Dave Thomas's daughter. But I guess like I'm at an age now where that reference doesn't really hit with folks named Dave Thompson, Wendy's, the burgers. Anyway,
We get it.
thank you all for being here. I am super honored to be here tonight. I appreciate James you for inviting me to this event where I'm able to read alongside Kyle, who is basically grew up in the same basically I mean like the same neighborhood district, right? So I mean like a generation apart too, right? So I mean I'm so blessed to be here. Like I mean I also write a lot about being from Oakland, being from the Bay Area, and this is something that kind of takes me through my debut poetry collection called Black California Gold. I'm going to read a set of poems that follow a trajectory, the first being a poem that describes my grandparents and great-grandmother on my father's side. So my father's people come from Louisiana, and they migrated here during the Second Great Migration, and having that as part of my root system, in addition to growing up being raised by an ethnic Chinese immigrant mother, led to a very layered experience in Oakland, in the Bay Area, in the 80s. Yes, I'm from 1981. And I'm just really excited to be here and share some of that with you tonight. All right, so the first poem is called Black California Freedom. To fit inside the yolk of your mouth, a sour freedom that takes you to a destination far beyond any cotton field. The snow white fluff in your hand, a precious contrast to the black dirt caked inside your palm. Working hands, you describe them as being. Hands with the same lines forming an M that each generation would say meant something. No one knowing what. Lifeline, headline, fate line, heart line. You are a person who hates being lied on, a natural born leader, a deeply intelligent person, an ambitious individual who is willing to take risks, an entrepreneurial soul who is particularly good at money management, a grown person shaped by the fact that they were intuitive as a child, strong-willed as a teenager, wrecked and bitter as a divorced 30-something-year-old, and at peace in their 40s. Grown. Hands as small as a saucer with pretty piano-playing fingers, he once told you as he put them in his mouth. You never needed any green book. Used those same hands as a guide. Felt your way to the warmest part of the map, a mock drawing of a country built on swamps, bodies, sugar, rice, and clay. There is a miraculous story here your history teacher once told you and pointed to a state furthest west that looked like a sideways cotton gin. Jagged little face running vertical into a southern desert or a northern promised land. A borderland falling into an ocean where Klansmen could never follow you and drag you away from your future. Earthquakes felt like 100 black souls getting off work at the shipyards and resting their feet for the night, your teacher said. A golden gate spanned from here to China, built with the same manpower that once harvested the element from the quartz stone earth, she added. Motion pictures, she pointed out, just spilled out of movie studios in a place called Hollywood and featured Negroes in jackets and dresses, even if they were only one-line butlers and mousy maids. There are no two sides to this story, but two things can both be true, she said. And when you finally arrived on a day filled with sunshine, as every other day afterward would be, you found yourself able to breathe in the sea salt air and relax your bladder enough to feel the piss you'd held in for the last 6 hours. You went in search of the nearest restroom and found no colors only sign, no whites only sign, just a toilet that you filled with your hot, wet arrival. Then you washed your hands, also an uncolored experience, and proceeded to order a malt at an integrated lunch counter for the very first time. The white woman sitting next to you did not flinch when by accident your knee touched her thigh. You liked it and she liked it. The raw, dark chocolate poured down a glass throat, fresh white whipped cream clinging to the lip, and electric maraschino cherry waiting to be sucked. Here in the city, you make real wages. Here in the city, you become part of a symphony of high-flying Negroes, fancy, fine, and carefree in work boots, coveralls, and the latest fashions from London, Rome, and gay Paris. Here, you hang up your grandmother's wedding gift, French lace curtains from New Orleans, covering up war workers' housing windows, the thinnest panes you'd seen since leaving Ouachita. In 10 years' time, above-ground trains will wrap around concrete platforms like a sleeve. In 10 years' time, 2 of your sons will have been arrested and jailed, the long dogs of Jim Crow of the West handcuffing them to rap sheets like a sleeve. But before then, a day will come when you find yourself able to afford an automobile. Just remember, as you drive across winding Pacific Coast highways to other norths, to leave behind traces of your map, an outline of your westward dreams on water. It is certain that you will meet another ocean and run into it without a mob to chase you out. It is certain that you will meet another ocean and roll in the waves and release yourselves from every single racist covenant, every single racist comment, every single racist cop, never knowing how you've changed the futures of your descendants, never considering once that black people like us can't swim. This next poem is about my mother. I don't write as much about her. I don't write that much about her, but this is based on a true event that happened and that we still grapple with to this day. It's titled My Mother in English, and it specifically looks at the connection between language and identity and the power in place. Past participle. Gotten, drowned, heard, said, seen, eaten, drunk, broken, eviscerated, become. Being trilingual, my mother is capable of understanding and making herself understood in 1, Mandarin, 2, English, 3, Burmese, albeit in varying degrees. However, for me, her eldest child and a native English speaker, Mandarin clangs through my body like a broken toy. It scrapes unfamiliar-like against the sides of my mouth. What? Huh? What? Huh? Past perfect. Had gotten, had drowned, had heard, had said, had seen, had eaten, had drunk, had broken, had eviscerated, had become. You would never know it, but this was once how we communicated. A young immigrant woman and new mother living isolated in a house with her brown child, talking in Chinese until the day I came home from school with a mouth like a broken levee, allowing our house to be battered and swept away by a deluge of words. Future continuous. He will be leaving, she will be breaking, he won't be returning, I will be masticating, he will be missing, she will be looking. The words I release specifically, here in America, we speak English. Future perfect, she will have tried to end it, he will have ended it, they will have left it unended, they will have wanted it to end, she will have eaten the ending, she will not have prepared herself for this end. I was in the 2nd grade and had only meant to submerge my mother's other language in order for the new language I was learning to take root in our mouths and gentrify our conversations, invade and displace the native to survive. Simple future. She will go, he will follow, they will fight, we will hide, she will scream, it will shatter, he will bleed out into the night. Once it became established, there was no longer sacred speech between us. Simile. He was as brown as chocolate cake, the first Black person she ever loved. He loved her for her ability to leave his house as clean as a whistle. She was now a housewife. They fought like cats and dogs. My parents, over the course of my 18 years, they were as different as night and day. Interracial marriage in the 80s and 90s. Their love was as dry as a bone. How it was born. What? Huh? What? Huh? Metaphor. Their marriage was an open book. He was the eclipse to her sun, a black hole into which she thrust herself. He was an ocean, a panic attack, a failed state. He was her entire universe until she became a mother. How do you say, I'm hungry for my mother in Chinese? My poetry kind of follows a particular trajectory, and I think that one of the things that I really appreciate, because it has been one of the most singularly difficult things to live through in one's lifespan, is the experience, the firsthand experience of gentrification. I don't think, and especially when in our communities we are not given the language to kind of understand what's happening, right? What's happening to us in this place. And one of the things that I appreciate is hearing, and it also I appreciate it because when I hear other poets talking about whether it's Oakland, the city, or even Richmond, I know that I'm not just kind of like in this experience where, I mean, it's this absolutely undescribable feeling, right? But also there's an appreciation because I know that what I'm listening to is, it's grief. It's grief, right? There's a grief that is happening at something that is so familiar and something that is so fundamental to belonging in place, being kind of stripped away and replaced by not just the different people, but different things, right? So in my poetry book, I talk about gentrification a bit. This poem is about Bart. Bart has gone through its own growth, development, evolution, right? So this is the old Bart. For those of you, I don't know how many of you grew up here, lived here, are familiar with Bart. In the 80s, 90s, I want to say pre-militarization of Bart, pre-George Floyd, like Black Lives Matter, there was a real rapid transformation that happened on Bart. So I wrote this poem in 2021. That was during COVID, right? BART is a different place now. This is called Black on BART, March 2021. To ride the last leg of the route into a city that has ordinanced and gang task forced you out of its limits. To accrue $500 in fines for fare evasion. To fight and be beaten up on the greatest elevated stage since Shakespeare's Globe Theater. You won't receive proceeds from this night's performance, but you will have the gawking crowd, the excitement of the police, the 3 seconds to decide which fare gate to exit through. Who pays to ride the thing that collapsed West 7th Street? Its anatomy of concrete platforms and miles of intestinal track work connecting Pittsburgh, Bay Point to South Hayward, and other stations in cities that most black folks have no business in, continuing to drown out the memory of Harlem of the West. Once there was a time when these trains were not the waiting rooms of white transplants and South Asian techies commuting home at the end of the day. Once there was a time when black elders, wailing babies, and rowdy teens rode to the senior center, the Head Start, and after-school programs. Once there was a time when Raiders fans, you remember them? Raiders fans, drunk and boisterous and silver-painted, were headed to the same station as middle-aged, flush-faced white suburbanites squeezed between their luggage and the dread. But then it changed. I mean, not just the BART, but the whole motherfucking thing. Now I drive past a person who looks like a younger version of my late grandfather, stumbling drunk through the streets, and I ask my father, what happened to us? What happened to our people who were forced to give up land, bread, and housing to this monument of suburban progress? What happened to Mrs. R, who stood before the bulldozers of urban renewal and was raised along with her flower bed, her floral skirt exposing brown thighs and upturned earth? What happened to our names, our zip codes, our futures? What happened to the migrant generation? My father turns to me and offers a truce. They got too fine. Loved the city and the whole thing swallowed us up. Now everybody needs a Clipper card. A one-way ride from Richmond to Bayfair is $4.25. Here in the Bay Area, where every black boy has a gun, every black boy is pursued, every black boy is on the tracks, every black boy is a thief, public transit becomes a pipeline to prison. Because despite this not being arranged, nor a Hitchcock film, nor a Western where the bandit ties up the hostages and leaves them to play chicken with a steam locomotive, this is still an automated moving train. Doors closing. Please stand clear of the doors. Once pulled away from the station and timed right, anybody can snatch an iPhone that man with the blue JanSport backpack so casually holds. Besides, he's riding it all the way to Powell, and you, who just jumped the fare gate at Fruitvale, you can get off anywhere. One time, the BART police, a legion, was sent after 2 black boys, shoeless and black socks, and hurtling toward my house like a meteorite. The smaller one would grab the chain link fence separating my side from the station grounds, prompting me to call out, "Y'all good?" They would reply so matter-of-factly, "We just got robbed, but thanks for asking." Thanks for asking. It was the politeness between a boy and his auntie, who asks him about his grades at the reunion before praising him for his effort. "I haven't seen you in ages, baby." They would disappear down my street, and I would stand there hoping they'd get away like in the movies. But moments later, the badge would show up sirenless and in kill speed, and the boys who weren't from around here would get picked up in a planned community where in the 1970s, black residents numbered less than 0.5%. That night, I stood in front of my house for a long time, feeling guilty over not doing something more to save an entire generation of black children from the same thing I ride to work every day. I'm gonna read one more, and then I'm going to introduce James. This one is also following that line of talking about gentrification, the experience of again, for folks who are familiar with this area, some of you remember Jacqueline Village? Does anyone know Jacqueline? You remember Jacqueline Village? So Jacqueline Village, I was like, These are like old friends to me now because they don't exist except for here, right? And so when we talk about them, when I talk about them and then I meet you all who remember it, it's like, oh my God, I remember them, right? There's something beautiful about remembering the sawmill building off the 580 freeway. You remember the sawmill? And then remember that the Coke sign when you're crossing the Bay Bridge and coming into the city, the Coke sign, our friends are here. This is called Investors Leave No Landmarks. First, they took Jacqueline Village, its wooden boardwalk planks wrapped around a 2-story maze of storefronts, a saloon full of bikers, a water tower, my favorite sweet shop where my father let me pick out old-fashioned candy sticks, root beer, passion fruit, tutti frutti, all of it demolished by the Port of Oakland in 2001. Then they left a disfigured sawmill building on Broadway, painted and repainted by investors until it was nothing but a nondescript off-white box that could have been office space. But once upon a time, it was a clock tower, its spire protruding from the top, a grand castle guarded by 2 great lions, our urban cathedral, lording over its fiefdom of freeways. Finally, the day came when the Coke sign stationed alongside the downtown connector of the I-80 and 101 to the Bay Bridge was removed. That bright red banner with the white cursive letters urging us to enjoy as we funneled our way into the lower deck back to Oakland, 1,000 tiny light bulbs lit up at night, blinking in a show that made Christmas feel ashamed. I tell my childhood friend what I remember. She tells me something different. Even our memories lie. Did we ever exist? The junk mail and spam callers say yes, but every single identifying factor points to the fact that our history, like our mother's histories and our father's shipwrecks, belong in every graveyard, raised to build a market-rate town home. Once a crane picked up a metal beam and I saw the strength of technology manifesting destiny into a future city of progress. I tried to recapture what I saw, jotting it down before bed. That crane lifting the beam was an act of aggression. That beam being lifted was part of the bone structure of a building coming together under increased police surveillance. Together they corroborate someone else's life story being written, permit by permit. Together they collaborate on a new city being built under increased police surveillance. But then I woke up and all I read was, your available balance has reached or dropped below 0. Call mom in the morning. Stop texting your ex. What is the function of a private diary entry when every page and every landmark has been publicly ripped out and eaten by developers? Yesterday, a real estate agent's mailing showed up on my doorstep asking, interested in selling? We've noticed that homes in your area have sold in the high 600s to low 700s. All I heard after all those zeros was, who are you to ever have dreams while Black and migrant descended in a northern city trapped in its own continuous renewal? It is as if animatronic mayors are set to demolition mode. We must fight the internal threat, the cancer of housing decay, because the end result of this disease is the slum, a costly breeding ground of crime, juvenile delinquency, fire, and disease, threatening the vitality of the entire community. The taxpayers of the good area of the city paid for the slum, an enemy of the modern, a killer of the new century, a thief of capital. Office buildings for lease. The value is in the land. Our ghosts don't haunt anything anymore. Their coffins buried directly under the Red Line Cemetery anchor freeway on-ramps, while the sound of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. rush hour traffic drown out their cries for help, even on Sundays. The other day in church, we saw the hand of God rise out of the earth. It was one of those new loft apartments built on the corpse of the former foundry, or was it the former rail yard? Or maybe the former lumber mill. No, it was the former sardine canning factory, industry's dead body made to rise again in the form of a sleek, modern, industrial chic building called the foundry, the rail yard, the millworks, the cannery. As the shiny new plate glass windows went up, my grandmother's Bible exploded, which led them to evacuate and demolish the church. Safety protocols, you understand. Chalk it up to experience. Chalk it up to dispossession, but I know when a street becomes a bike lane. If we don't move, they'll put in another artisanal bread and cheese shop. This city will never give our people an education that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. With our warriors all hand-tied and busy building community gardens to feed beans to those raised on processed foods, will the outlaws show up with guns and grills to defend us at this street fight? We want to keep the street up. Investors want to tear it down, build some nice new live workspace. City council members nod at the 100th listening circle. 6% of remaining Black lives in California matter. Note that investors come straight through the glass doors, not like the train killers trailing behind you at night. They, the investors, come bearing gift baskets full of startups and hedge funds and bottles full of work meetings on golf courses. They come permitted, invited to sit in fish bowls, conference rooms, while entire grandparents get signed over by mayors who smile and look at the cameras during groundbreaking ceremonies. We know there are nothing but cardboard cutouts with graffiti, without graffiti artists to mark them up for future use, but does everybody else know this too? Here in the city where somebody's uncle inherited a 1920s era house with chipped paint, wood rot, and dead grass, an investor made an offer. Now there's recessed lighting, white subway bathroom tiles, quartz countertops, and a peach Gerbera daisy in a ceramic vase on the table, staged by an agent. Here in the city, somebody's baby mama lost a fight in a McDonald's parking lot in 1993, an event that will never be remembered as having happened here. But they will build buildings on top of buildings, vacant and ready, memorialized for the next wave of gentrifiers not yet born. Everything is a loft. Everything is a luxury mixed-use retail development with concierge. Everybody is in a tent wrapped up in a tarp under a BART platform or hiding in a bigger sinkhole behind the Home Depot, spilling into traffic. We were never here, they've convinced us to say, as they erect yet another artist warehouse, build yet another farm-to-table restaurant, raise yet another community full of Black mothers who send their children on a Head Start bus to the first undeveloped county that is nothing but a sign advertising limited collection single-family homes coming soon. Now I know how easy it is to erase Black history. All it is chalk, outlining the shape of a body. All it is debris, and our family's furniture bought on layaway, and despite the storm drain exclaiming, "No dumping," this is how all our bodies ended up in the bay.